Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Just before I start this meeting, we are having a bit of a celebration out in the foyer at the completion of this meeting, and I'd like you all to join us for a few nibbles and a drink, and as this is our last meeting, so I look forward to talking to more of you there. I'll start with the notice of the meeting recording. Clause 91, Section 4 of the Governance and Meeting Conduct Local Law provides the following. This public meeting is being recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be published and will be retained by Council in accordance with Council's legal obligations. As a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. I'd now like to acknowledge the traditional owners. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. We pay our respects to their elders and to elders from other communities who may be here today. The opening prayer. Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide this council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people whom we serve. Amen. There are no apologies this evening, no conflict of interest disclosures. So we are now down to the administrator's reports. The confirmation of the minutes. Missed that one. Of the 18th of September. I'll move the confirmation of the minutes. Could I have a seconder, please? Seconded Rodney Roscola. All those in favour? Motion carried. The administrator's reports. Irene, would you like to start?
Yes, Madam Chair. Given that this is our last meeting tonight, I'd like to perhaps say a few words in regard to this. For me, it's been both a pleasure and a privilege to serve as an administrator of the rural city of Wangaratta over the past 3 years. I would like to acknowledge my fellow administrators for their professionalism and commitment, in particular our Chair Alsa for navigating us through the many meetings, keeping us focused, on time, and ensuring we made the decisions that we needed to make. So that, it's been, quite a challenge. One of the first things we did as a team was to appoint a new CEO and senior directors. Few organisations would be in such a position, and it's a credit to all of those involved that they have developed into a cohesive and efficient team. It's been a very productive relationship. The restoration of confidence internally and externally to the council was a main priority. If the comments that have been made to me, particularly in recent weeks, I think we've been successful. Wangaratta is back on the map. From the first days of our appointment, we have focused on getting things done. A complete review of the governance and local laws, the rural land strategy, the upgrade of the sale yards, the aquatic strategy, the development of the former Ovens College site, and that's still a work in progress, a very successful community leadership program, the CBD master plan, and work to revitalise the airport. Again, something that still needs work. And these are just a few of the things that have been on our agenda and things that we've had to deal with. And these activities, obviously too, running alongside a long list of other tasks that contributed to good governance and stability. It's been an exciting time. I once heard the rural city of Wangaratta described as a council that punched above its weight. At that time, it was about the development of the Indoor Sports and Aquatic Centre and its role as a regional and local facility, the vibrant retail development and the riverside development. The fact that Wangaratta has had a vision that looked at strengthening its position in regional Australia and beyond, I think has brought recognition for our municipality. And there's no reason why we should not aspire to bold and big picture thinking in terms of how we frame our strategies for the future. We operate in a global economy and we need to set down the foundation for our future, strengthen Wangaratta's position as a regional city, and also we'll be talking about her visit to China. And there's potential to unleash a whole raft of economic development opportunities, and we should be looking at what we can do in a whole of region terms to strengthen our position through tourism, economic development and in job creation. I'm hopeful that with the new council this work will be continued and that we continue to aspire to punch above our weight and make Wangaratta a place that stands out in regional Victoria. So again, I'd like to reiterate, what a privilege and a pleasure it's been for me to work with the council and with the team that we have here. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much, Irene.
I'll be very brief. I think Irene's done very well as usual and pretty much says it all. A key role that we had when we came here, expressed by the Minister in the ovens room next door, was to get the community connected back with the council and get confidence between those two parties, and we think that's been largely achieved. Another key role was to build confidence back into staff, and I just have to agree wholeheartedly with Irene that the appointment of Brendan as CEO and our CMT, plus all the rationalisation that's happened with staff in recent times, leads you to the view that things are very much under control and coordinated and looking good internally, and that's really important. What's now got to happen, of course, is there's an election coming up, and we'll let it talk about elections, are we? But it's over to the ratepayers to make decisions on that hopefully will end up in a council that never looks back and has a bright future. A particular thing that I want to talk about though is planning. When we first came here, the amount of planning that was in the drawer for whatever reason and had not been put out for decision making, etc., was absolutely extraordinary. In fact, near unbelievable. And we've worked through that with Barry and his team to a point where so many strategies are well advanced, if not approved, and there's more to come. And I guess what I would plead is that the new council picks up the strategies that aren't quite there and sees them through to the end. Planning takes a long time, but they just need to be concluded, and I'm pretty confident that the new council will see that as a priority and get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodney. I'd just like to make a few observations about my recent trip to China. And I suppose, and this is apart from what's coming in the agenda a little bit later, but one of the things that I would ask that the incoming council to decide whether they're going to support this ongoing sister city relationship. What we became very much aware of when we first met the officials from Suzhou that met us, they were fairly upset in the fact that Wangaratta had a relationship that had been going along quite well, and then for some reason, which probably most people in this room know of, the corporate knowledge of that visit wasn't embedded in the organisation, so therefore we, as the three administrators, weren't aware of all of the work that had previously gone into this sister city relationship, and the fact that if you're going to have these sister city relationships, you've got to work on them very diligently and keep in contact with them, and you don't get anything from just 1 or 2 visits every 5 or 6 years. It's got to be something that's done on a regular basis. And to put it quite bluntly, they were quite upset with us when we first started talking to them. I think by the time we left there, the relationship had healed considerably, but I don't think it's would respond to another setback like that where we haven't contacted them or had contact with them for many years. And I think in the report that's in the council agenda, which we'll deal with later, some of the regional cities have had great success in what they've actually got out of their relationships with China over a long term, and some of them are even to the stage of actually putting staff based in Shanghai. But as an industry and primary producers here in the northeast, we've got so much to offer, and we need to get more markets for our product. Australia can't, particularly in the world of primary production, use all of that we produce, and the more markets and the more competition we have for those products, the better off we will be. And China is seen as one of the major emerging markets for many of those primary production. And while we were there, they also talked about the relationship with the TAFE college that they'd had previously with North East Health. Some of the people that we travelled with had very fond memories of their trip to Australia. I think it might have been in 2007, which is a long time ago now. But we've got to really, you know, if council believes that economic development and development of this region is going to be high on their agenda, as most of the council candidates have stated, I think you've really got to make a firm decision about whether you're going to try and rebuild this relationship and keep it going with China. They're willing to host delegations over there, and one thing that was immediate apparent to us was the value of the mayor, and you'll hear later on in the council report what having the mayor as part of a delegation actually does. So I'll just leave it at that point, but it's something that the new council will have to deal with, I think, fairly soon after their induction. And the other strong point that came out of this trip was travelling with Regional Development Victoria. You had all of the senior people who work in regional development on an overseas basis there, wonderful contacts. You had the Deputy Secretary of Regional Development Victoria travelling with us. We also had the Minister, we had other parliamentary officials, so I think if we can work under the auspice of Regional Development Victoria and their sister city relationship with Jiangsu, that's probably the way to go forward. So thanks very much. I'll now continue on with the meeting. And the next agenda item is the Executive Services Amendment to the Schedule of Council Meetings.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This item deals with some alterations to our annual schedule of council meetings. The first change that's proposed is to push back the November meeting 1 week. That's really a practical alteration to give us a bit more time with the newly elected council. We're being told at the moment the election result is not likely to be declared until the 31st of October, which gives a pretty short period of time between the original date of the 15th of November and that date to make sure that the councillors understand what's in the agenda and that we understand what they want to consider. So the proposal is to move that back 1 week to give us a bit more time to sort that out. The second change that's proposed is to confirm Millawa as the location for that November meeting.
Thank you very much. For those that haven't been to a council meeting here before, we do allow questions on each agenda item prior to that agenda item being put. So are there any questions on this particular agenda item? If there are no questions, I'll ask for someone to move the recommendation. Moved Rodney Roscola, seconded Irene Grant. All those in favour? Motion carried. The next agenda item is the delegation of regional cities to China, and as Alan was the acting CEO at that time, he'll introduce us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is presented to Council to provide an update on the trip to China, which was where Council travelled as part of the delegation of the Regional Cities Victoria. The timing for this trip was pretty ordinary from most councils' point of view during an election period, but that time came about as that was the timings the Chinese had invited Victoria and the regional cities to attend. So Jiangsu is the sister state of Victoria, and then most of the regional cities of Victoria have sister city relationships with cities within Jiangsu, and ours in particular is the second largest city in this province and one that's growing extremely fast. So I think a lot of it's already been said by the chair, but it was very obvious the relationship was fairly damaged. So most of our meeting time was spent renewing that. Some of the other regional cities have very strong relationships and have been working at theirs for a number of years. So they had quite different meetings with their counterparts. But overall, I think we found it extremely productive, and most of all, the opportunities that were there and the opportunities that have grown into real productive relationships for some of the businesses that are in some of these other regional cities. And Warrnambool is one city that's done a great job. They've had a Chinese national working out of their office and has set up business-to-business relationships, and they're setting up an office in Shanghai shortly. The government-to-government relationships were also very notable, and to get the right doors open, government-to-government is very important in China at all levels. So, and some of the universities were examples of that. When they went over on a university basis, they were meeting with 4th or 5th level managers. When they went over as part of their sister city, they were meeting with their peers and real productive talks. Elsa mentioned the value of the mayor. That really stood out. The Chinese really have a huge respect for the position of mayor, and their mayors, given the size of the cities, are really more like a state premier in size. So our sister city, Suzhou, is 14.5 million people. So they placed a great deal of emphasis on that, and on the final day when we had a very formal gathering, those in the photo were the Premier, the Governor of Jiangsu, and the one Mayor who attended. So the CEOs pale insignificance, I can assure you. So it was very, we think it was productive. The recommendation is all about if the new council considers it worthy to continue the relationship, and a few points on ways to strengthen that early on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on this agenda item?
I've got one.
Could you come up and use the microphone and state your name, please? There's a button there to press to switch it on. I think it's marked. Yes, that's right. You've got.
My name's Lex Anderson. I live at Moyu up the Boggy Creek Road. You were saying that they were disappointed that they had no meetings or information from the rural city of Wangaratta since 2007. I would have thought it's not the elected council, it's the permanent people that are real on this side of the table that should have been keeping that information going. To say that they were disappointed and they hadn't heard from Wangaratta, to me, is a lack of something happening on the permanent people that they're not the ones that are elected every couple of years as a councillor.
I'll have a go at answering that. What I'm saying is that with the sacking of the council and quite a few of the senior staff at that particular time, it seems that the corporate knowledge that was in council or in the council offices of that particular sister city relationship was lost. It was held by a few people. It wasn't something that was embedded within the organisation, and as you'll see, part of the recommendation is that the sister city relationship be embedded in the new council plan, so that there is progress reported against what's happening, and that relationship is kept strong. The other thing that did happen was that they said that they'd been sending cards and things to us. Well, we can't track where they've gone within the organisation.
All right.
Thank you. Any further questions? If there are no further questions, I intend to move the recommendation. Could I have a seconder for that recommendation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll second that recommendation and just comment in saying that I think it's something that there's potential in the relationship with China. As I said, we're operating in a global market now in terms of economic development. We've got to look beyond our immediate neighbourhood. in terms of what we might do into the future. There have been examples of outstanding success with municipalities that have maintained relationships over a period of time, and obviously with the support of the state government and the Regional Development Victoria, I think there is potential to grow some opportunities into the future, but it's something that we need to look at and not half do it. I think we've got to lay down the foundations for the future and work with a strategy that will allow us to gain some benefit from the relationship. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favour? Motion carried. The next agenda item is the Administrator's Progress Report, October 2016.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is the final of a series of progress reports on some key priorities and projects that have been worked on and progressed over the term of the administrators. I guess the key recommendations on this particular occasion are that it is the final report and that we provide this report to the successfully elected incoming candidates so that they have some background information on what's been worked on over the last few years. And I know it's certainly the administrator's intent to offer an opportunity to meet with them as a group with the successfully elected candidates to do a bit of a handover meeting and just provide a bit of background and context on some of these key issues as might be desired by the new candidates. So that really is to present that final version of the report for formal adoption.
Are there any questions on this particular agenda item? If there are no questions, could I have someone to move the motion, the recommendation, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll move the recommendation and just comment that I think the report speaks for itself, and I invite people to look at it and read it.
Thank you, Irene. Seconder?
Yes, I'm delighted to second this item. I have spoken to it on a couple of occasions. It came about because we realised that if we didn't have focus on the work we were doing as administrators, then there's no way of judging whether or not you get there. So what we did was develop a report that listed all the things that we really must do and all those things that we really should do if we could do during our term of office. Now, we haven't achieved them all. I think we realise now it was a mountain too hard for anyone to climb, but a lot of them have been achieved. And as Brendan said, it's a document, hopefully, that the new council will embrace, probably modified based on their particular circumstances, but the actual model of having a target and a strategy that's publicly available and can have public comment on would be certainly recommended by us. I just want to make a small alteration to the recommendation in front of you to add to 1 and 2 that this report be referred to the Minister for Local Government as an indicator of it being our final report, to indicate to the Minister just what we've achieved over that time and the situation that Council currently finds itself in from a strategic point of view. Thank you.
So, thanks very much. So,
No, I'm happy to actually endorse that additional point in the recommendation from the motion.
so I'll put that motion now with the additional dot point that this report be forwarded on to the Minister for Local Government. All those in favour? Motion carried. The annual report 2015-2016.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report presents Council's 2015-16 annual report for adoption. The report contains our report of operations, our audited performance statement and our audited financial statements. And many of the measures in the performance statement will be found on the Know Your Council website, so you can make comparisons easily.